going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling, and this is a news break. We got a couple things to talk about today, catching up with some of the major stories going on in the world of pro wrestling. And one of the things, let's start with New Japan, is a couple of things have been shaking over New Japan. A lot of people, fans, both in the East, both in the West, are really scratching their heads about some of the decisions going on involving New Japan Pro Wrestling. Jon Moxley winning the IWGP Championship from Tetsuya Naito, so there is not only not a Japanese wrestler, but a contracted New Japan wrestler or somebody who's even in Japan, and they've been having shows without their world champion on the show. This has led to a lot of fallout, a lot of fans not very happy with these decisions. I see what the intent probably is to give New Japan more exposure by having it on Jon Moxley on AEW television. However, I think there's a little bit, and I think I've seen a lot of fans talk about this partnership. I've talked about it before. I think New Japan is giving up a little bit too much over to AEW with getting very little in return. Yeah, they got Jack Perry for 4 months, but you know, does it feel even to anybody? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But the kind of fallout for that is, what does Tetsuya Naito do? Well, Jake Lee from Pro Wrestling Noah, part of the Good Looking Guys stable, he's kind of been borrowed from New Japan to kind of fill in the spot, because also LIJ, which is Naito's faction, is currently in a feud with the Bullet Club War Dogs, and the Bullet Club War Dogs are down a guy because of the unfortunate early retirement of Alex Coughlin. So Jake Lee is kind of filling that spot, even though if you watch that elimination match that they had this past week, he's not really in sync with the rest of the War Dogs. I think they need to find another Gaijin guy that fits with that group. That foursome, I'm not including Finlay with it, but the foursome of Gabe Kidd, Clark Connors, and Driller Maloney, I think they were rounded out by Alex Coughlin. The four of them was a good group. I would hope that they could find somebody that might want to fill that spot with them and that would make a natural fit for that. But the main feud seems to be here between Jake Lee and Naito, and I guess that's kind of a holdover while the IWGP Championship is technically not in the company. Now, Jon Moxley, again, you don't have to worry about him. He is going to go back to Japan. He's already got 2 defenses lined up. He's got one against, well, we assume he's going to have one against Shota Umino pretty soon, and he does have a defense lined up against Ren Narita from the House of Torture. But this has also led to some other, not just fans, but some wrestlers not being so happy. Gabe Kidd, who I've talked about many times on his channel over the last several months, and said this guy's, he's got all the tools, man. He's probably going to be a big star. He's going to be that guy in a couple years that WWE fans are going to go, oh, is he going to be in a Royal Rumble this year? And AEW fans are going to be, oh, I hope Tony Khan signs him like he signed Will Ospreay. He's going to be one of them guys in about 2 years or so. But right now, Gabe Kidd is starting out that journey, and he's talked a lot of smack about IWGP, New Japan. He's even said, like, for kayfabe reasons, because he's facing Shingo Takagi for the NEVER Openweight Championship coming up this weekend at Wrestling Dontaku, Gabe Kidd has kind of worked it into the storyline that he didn't really care about the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship or the Intercontinental Championship or even Finlay's Global Championship by inference. He cared about the NEVER Openweight title, because the NEVER title, especially 6, 7, 8 years ago, that title pretty much was a strong style title. It was supposed to be, for those of you who aren't familiar with the history of the NEVER Openweight Championship, it was supposed to be a championship that both junior heavyweights and heavyweights could compete for, because New Japan's still holding on to their junior heavyweight division. That title really came to prominence, and that belt became worth something during the era when it was Togi Makabe and Tomohiro Ishii and Katsuyori Shibata, Minoru Suzuki, guys like that, fighting over that championship in these hard-hitting, strong-style matches that were part of what, back when New Japan had that Western expansion explosion in the mid-2010s, that was one of the big reasons why a lot of people were looking over, because especially Western fans, because Western wrestling fans at that time, 7 years ago, that was not common. We didn't have Gunther's on Monday Night Raw chopping the crap out of everybody. We didn't have AEW Dynamite back then. So seeing that kind of physicality and that kind of rough stuff, despite how much Bret Hart might hate it, was something that fascinated a lot of wrestling fans in the West. The NEVER Openweight Championship has not been that at all times. And Gabe Kid has proclaimed that he wants that NEVER Openweight title because he wants to bring that style back to New Japan. And dude is making a lot of waves. A lot of us expect I would say come New Year Dash next year, I would be shocked if, well, I wouldn't be shocked because it's New Japan and Gato's booking, but I would be happy, and I kind of expect to see Gabe Kid take over Bullet Club War Dogs from David Finlay by New Year's Dash. They're already setting the seeds for it anyway. You can already see it. So that's some of the stuff that's going on over in New Japan. I will have a review of Wrestling Dontaku after the event happens. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, and you might as well share this video while you're at it as well. Over in WWE and AEW, as the battle continues, Cody Rhodes has had some choice words for his former company, AEW. He was doing a podcast. He, of course, now is the WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, which basically honestly, he's the #1 champion in WWE. He's the man right now, right? And he's expressed his desire to be the next John Cena. He wants to be the face of the company. If Roman was the best product the company's made, Cody wants to be bigger and better. Then all that's admirable. But apparently, he took some issue with Toni Storm making some in-character reference to Paul Levesque and other people coming into the ring when Cody won the championship, and then Cody took it to be about his wife, and some fans are like kind of confused by that. Other fans are like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Toni Storm is Toni Storm, dude. Like, I wouldn't get that serious about it, but Cody seems like Cody's been in that WWE bubble for a while now, and which there's a lot to be talked about with the Cody thing. If it gets any further, I think maybe it might warrant a video. Here's the truth. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud here. Ever since Cody, even back when Cody was in the Elite, there was always the feeling that he was that kind of square peg in the round hole. Like, he really didn't seem to fit with those guys. They're all like regular people, and he's always wearing the suits, and he's focused on WWE. He even did the whole WWE possession thing. It always felt like, and we all kind of knew he really was just worried about being back in WWE, like a lot of people in the business are. And even though he was in the Elite, when he went back to started AEW and then went back to WWE, some of us were shocked, but then in the back of our minds we're kind of going, yeah, that was always there. So I don't know if it's going to continue to be contentious between AEW and Cody Rhodes, if this is going to continue to grow and be a thing. It would be kind of sad if it did, but I think we all expect it to happen anyway. So I think Cody has more things to worry about as Monday Night Raw. For a very odd reasons this week, SmackDown and Raw were down in the ratings, even though they had the draft, while Collision actually had an increase in the ratings. But there are circumstances around that because Collision had the NBA Finals NBA playoffs as a lead-in, so they got fans for watching that. Although the fan, they dropped about 200,000 fans after that, so back to their normal numbers. And the reason why SmackDown and Raw were low in the ratings was again because the NBA playoffs. So all that being said, I will say, as a person who is a casual fan of WWE, we were a couple weeks now from WrestleMania, and I watched the clips on YouTube. That's how I watch most of the weekly stuff from WWE. I gotta be honest with you guys, I looked at most of the clips. The only one I really wanted to click on was the one where Dominic Mysterio apparently had Liv Morgan in his dressing room or something, and she came out after she came out of the dressing room in the background, which is really clever kind of camera work. WWE they're doing a lot of really clever, new, innovative stuff with their camera work, by the way, ever since the Paul Levesque era has started. But that really was it. Most of the other stuff I'm seeing, I'm not really feeling it for what's coming up with the next pay-per-view of Backlash. I don't know. AJ and Cody, okay. Jay and Drew, or Jay and Damian Priest, okay. Drew McIntyre, he's probably the most entertaining thing right now I've seen in WWE as far as his promos are concerned. But I'm worried a little bit that without the bloodline, without Roman, I don't know. We're gonna have to give it time. We're gonna have to give it time and see. I'll say I would give it like 3 months to see if they feel as hot as they did over the last 2 years. I did say I was kind of worried that they're talking all this stuff about a new era, and I did say a couple weeks ago, and it's too early to say that it's true, but I did say that the second somebody, Triple H, says we're just getting started, that's usually when you've hit your peak. And I'm hoping for the sake of WWE, because look, even though it's not my cup of tea, I'd rather, since I do have to cover wrestling, and I do watch some of the major WWE shows, I'd rather them be good than bad. So I hope it's not the end of this era and that it wasn't the peak and he didn't jinx it by saying that, which everybody always does. But time will tell. They're reshuffling the deck, and there's some smart people over there, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of months. But it definitely feels like WWE's cooled off as far as creatively. They're going to carry, though, the crowds for a while. So don't expect, if you're an anti-WWE person, I'm not saying that, oh, they're about to collapse. They're not. They are far, 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 far from collapsing. They are going to be eating healthy for quite some time over in World Wrestling Entertainment. AEW, to round this out, the big angle after last week's angle with Tony Khan, we immediately knew that Kenny Omega coming back to Winnipeg was going to be interesting, because he was the last domino to fall. He's the last piece that the Elite would need to take out in order for them to have total supremacy over AEW. This past week's edition of Dynamite started with Tony Khan in a neck brace, and they just kind of like giving one of his kind of sort of awkward like promos that he's always done for the last 5 years, and then they kind of do the static thing and cut him out, and the Bucks come on like, oh, satellite problems, oh, well, since Tony's not here, we're gonna run it. So Tony Khan's gonna be off TV for a while. I don't know how long that's gonna. I think the one thing we all hope is that he doesn't come back on as an on-screen character, and I do know that AEW people listen to my show. Please do not have Tony come on and try to get revenge as an on-screen character. He should probably. This is probably a good way to write him off of being on screen. Maybe make an appearance to let us know that he's back in charge once this storyline is over. But I don't think they should end this storyline like in a month from now and Tony comes back and everything goes back to normal. I think they should put a lot of legs on this, because what they've done with this Elite storyline, it opens up so many things, so many angles they can do now that I thought about and like, oh, that would be good, that would be good, that would be good. One of them is this hero story that they might be telling now with Kenny Omega. Given that Kenny Omega actually can wrestle again, because how much of this is real and how much, we know he had diverticulitis, but how severe it is, no one really knows. And what he said in this ring, I'm kind of assuming most of it's true, but I don't think he would have been taking bumps like he was if it was as serious as he said in his promo that blunt force trauma to his stomach, he could die. So I don't think he'd be doing the stuff that he was doing if that was true. Maybe he is. Look, the last thing I want to see, which there are a few things that would make me stop watching wrestling. Kenny Omega dying in the ring would be one of them. So let's not do that. If Kenny really can't go, if he's gonna have to have a colostomy bag, then fine. But I do keep in mind too that Brock Lesnar had diverticulitis, and Brock Lesnar did come back and has wrestled for several years. He's not wrestling now for other reasons, but Brock had the same thing. We'll see what goes on with Kenny. I do assume though that they shot this angle. Either I can't imagine the Kenny Omega character going out like this. Whether or not he's going to come back to wrestle, or he's going to come back as an on-screen talent, as a like a GM or something, or he's going to run AEW as the same way Triple H is the face of WWE as far as leadership. Maybe Kenny will be that in AEW. I don't know. It all depends on what really is going on with Kenny Omega. I did notice he talked about that he'd have to have his midsections cut open and all this stuff, and he ripped his shirt off during this whole little fiasco on Wednesday. Probably the last time we'll see it, because if they do the surgery and he comes back and they do have to cut him open down the middle, you're probably not going to see Kenny Omega. He's probably going to wear like a singlet or something in the future if he wrestles. All of that aside, again, I don't know. Kenny's a very private person, so how much, again, of that is true or is still true. It may have been true at one time, maybe it's not now. We will not know until the future. The coolest thing was that for the first time since they did a tag match last year in New Japan, when Kenny had a little stint over there, Kazuchika Okada in an adversarial role faces off of Kenny Omega. Now, I wish it had been in front of a different crowd, because the Winnipeg crowd, I know it's Kenny's hometown and Don Callis and Jericho, but it's not a great, it doesn't sound great on screen. And I think, you know, there were 4,000 people. There's like 4,500 people at this show. This is one of the larger Dynamite audiences they've had, but they were very, very quiet. They were very, very, very quiet. They pop for the right moments, but in between those moments, it's like, you know, the Japanese audiences are quiet, but this is a different kind of quiet. I don't know what's going on with the audience in Winnipeg, but there were some holy shit chants, of course, because this rivalry, and I've said it on this channel for many times, Okada and Omega, if it wasn't for the series of matches that they had 7 years ago, there would be no AEW. Let's just put it that way. That's one of the things that was required to happen, along with other things, but that is a big thing that needed to happen in order for us to have AEW. If that series didn't happen, we probably wouldn't have it. So they face off. Kenny says, hey, give me a couple months. Maybe I'll come back. A couple months sounds about good for Wembley, huh? Yeah. Sounds like a good time to do Wembley. Okada and Omega at Wembley would be pretty cool. Okada says, well, sorry, Kenny, I am now the best bout machine. And then Jack Perry, of course, attacks. And we all kind of saw this coming because Kenny set it up talking about getting hit in the stomach. He might die. And it turns out that he does get hit in the stomach. Jack Perry hits him with the chair in the stomach. The Bucks come in and they hit him with the EVP trigger. Kenny goes out in a stretcher. FTR comes down to make the save, but then it continues as Dynamite transitions into Rampage. Kenny's on a stretcher. The Elite take out the FTR and anybody else back there who's trying to protect Kenny, and then they throw him off the gurney, claiming that they said they had to change the world, and sorry, Kenny, we're going to have to do this, and
oh my god, they killed Kenny! You bastard!
And that's how Dynamite ended and Rampage started. And I gotta say, man, so far 2 weeks in a row, the closing angles on Dynamite have been absolutely fantastic. A lot of people are going on about, well, we'll see if the ratings this week. Keep in mind, it's not going to reflect in the ratings. In fact, again, this is the benefit of me being a fan as long as I have been. WWE, just for comparison, Monday Night Raw was a better show than WCW Nitro for about 6 to 8 months before Raw pulled ahead in the ratings. The fans knew the show was better, but it took a while for all of the audience to kind of shift over to watch the better show. I think you're not going to see instant, immediate results. That's why I said hopefully they've got a lot of plans for the storyline. There's a lot of things they could do with it going into the future to keep it going and to keep it interesting, because this is a winning feud. They haven't had one of these, I'd say, really since Punk and MJF's feud. So this thing's got a lot of legs on it if they play it right. I am concerned about Kenny Omega's health. Again, about the diverticulitis, but I think this was a cool way to write him off the show and to make him kind of the Rick Grimes of the AEW world. And we want another curly-haired Caucasian male hero. We want him to come back. Something about those curly hair guys. They always got to fight for freedom. But we want Kenny to come back, being taken out on the stretcher and being taken off the show. The Elite is doing well. I like the storyline. I think it's cool. The next thing that sprung to my mind is I'm like, all right, there's one other piece of this puzzle, and that's Hangman Adam Page, who's on sabbatical, who the Bucks suspended. So Hangman, when he comes back, is he going to side with Kenny? Is he going to try to get back with the Elite? The whole thing was when Hangman left, he was a heel. He was the biggest heel, one of the biggest heels in the company, because he was going up against Swerve. Is he still going to be going after Swerve? I half expected him to come out when they were going to announce his opponent, Swerve Strickland's opponent, for Double or Nothing. I thought it would have made sense if it was Hangman Page. I honestly would have preferred that because, again, like I said, the Elite storyline, if Hangman had come back, they could have done this whole thing, whether or not Hangman's playing ball with the Elite, are they putting up obstacles against him. It would be a title defense that you could really get fans to legitimately believe that Swerve might not retain in. Now, maybe they're saving that for a later date. I don't know. Maybe they're saving that for Forbidden Door, because Forbidden Door this year, God knows what, there's not going to be any. The cross New Japan thing is not going to be as exciting as what they could do with some of this stuff. So maybe that's going to happen, but we'll see coming in the future. But Hangman Page is the wild card in all this right now. With Tony Khan taken out, Kenny Omega taken out, when is Hangman coming back? What side is he going to be on? And speaking of Swerve Strickland, Christian Cage, is his opponent for Double or Nothing now. There are some old storyline threads they brought back about the whole match at All In and that brutal attack Swerve did and AR Fox did against Nick Wayne back several months ago. That's cool. I'm going to give it 2 weeks to see what they do with it. I think this is a case, and I admit that I get this too, where I kind of booked it in my head to be Hangman Page, and when it wasn't, I was disappointed, but that's me booking the show, not watching the show for what it is. So we'll see. I'll give it some time. Christian Cage, like I said, last year he was a runner-up for like Superstar of the Year, Most Improved of the Year, because the patriarchy thing is just great with him, so we'll see what happens with that. But that's the big news I wanted to talk about from the past week in pro wrestling, sports, entertainment. I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. And until next time, I will see you guys this weekend as we cover Wrestling Dontaku. We cover Backlash and all other news and rumors and other stuff here in the world of pro wrestling and sports entertainment on the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.